Listening Library presents Disney Dumbo, Circus of Dreams by Kari Sutherland. Read for you by Lisa Flanagan.
Prologue, Missouri, 1919. 12-year-old Millie Ferrier leaned against the grimy window of the train's passenger car as it rolled through the plains of whichever state they were in now. If she squinted, the yellow grasses, clusters of emerald trees, and occasional farmhouses all swirled together, almost like one of her mother's abstract paintings. Of course, Max Medici, the circus director, had always made Annie Ferrier stick to a more relatable style for the boxcar signs and fairground banners. Not too abstract, but not too realistic. No, he wouldn't want that to destroy the magic of the experience. Only Millie, Joe, and their father had gotten to appreciate the sweep of colors her mother had brushed onto canvas in what she called her action pieces. They captured what the audience and circus lights looked like to her as she hung upside down from a horse during the show, wind whipping through her hair. Millie knew he tried his best, but the new ads Rongo slapped together could never match her mother's bold, eye-catching scenes. Millie's stomach twisted, and a tear slid down her cheek as she clutched the key dangling from her necklace. A door in the ceiling screeched open, and her younger brother dropped down into the car. She'd told him countless times not to cross between the train cars unless the train was at a standstill. But the 8-year-old never listened. Quickly, Millie wiped her face dry. She had to be strong for him now. "Joe, you know you're not supposed to change cars while we're moving," Millie scolded. "Unless it's an emergency," Joe finished as he got to her row. "But it is an emergency. Guess what? Guess what?" Joe bounced onto the wooden bench across from her. His floppy brown hair bobbed lightly, and his smile was so wide it could have split the sky. It was nice to see him so happy. "What?" "We got a letter. From Dad!" Millie's heart nearly stopped, but Joe kept going, his words clattering almost as fast as the train's wheels. "It was jumbled up in Mr. Medici's accounting mail at the last station, and he just found it." Beaming, Joe reached into his jacket and pulled out a stained white envelope with a flourish. Millie resisted the urge to lunge for it. Joe handed it over and she tugged out the creased paper, her eyes drinking up her father's loose handwriting. As she read the words, Joe babbled on. "He's coming home, Millie. The army's released him with a medal and everything. Mr. Medici already sent off a telegram telling him to meet us in Joplin." Tears of joy pricked her eyes as she smiled up at Joe. "He's coming home," she echoed in wonder. "I can't wait to hear all his stories," Joe said. "I know he couldn't put anything in the letters in case they fell into enemy hands, but I'll bet he is a hero, thundering onto the battlefield. I bet the Germans just threw up their hands in surrender." Millie's mind drifted, her brother's chattering fading into the background, just like the swaying of the train. She clutched the letter to her chest as though she could grab hold of her dad through his words. But she'd be able to hug him soon enough. Just a little bit longer. He'd make everything all right. Millie knew he couldn't bring back her mother. Nobody could do that. But her dad was strong. Her dad was brave. And he could do just about anything else. They wouldn't have to worry anymore. He'd take care of everything. He'd take care of them. Chapter 1. With a squeal of brakes, the train shuddered backward to the edge of the tracks, dead-ending on the side of a wide meadow. Joe whooped loudly as his body was flung into the air, only one hand anchoring him to the pole at the back of the caboose. Then the jolt of the stop slammed him back onto the porch, his shoes sliding across the floorboards. Millie wouldn't approve. She'd scold him for being reckless. Her forehead would get that wrinkle in the middle that had never been there before Mama died. But Millie wasn't there to see. "Yee-haw!" Joe shouted as he leapt from the train. They were finally there. Joplin, Missouri, where his dad would meet them any day now. Across the meadow, several boys his age raced toward him, waving madly. Joe raised his hat in return. Well, not his hat. It was his dad's, and a bit too large for him, truth be told, but the other boys couldn't see that from this far away. Shh, boom! Boxcar doors slid open down the line, and the circus crew hopped out in a well-rehearsed dance, one of them staying behind in each car to toss down the supplies. The faded white and red striped fabrics and poles for the tents came out first, along with the fence to keep out those seeking a free peek. "Hiya, Joe," Rongo called. The strong man hefted a stack of boards that weighed significantly more than the fake inflatable barbells he wielded on stage. "Hi, Rongo!" Joe waved as he ducked under a roll two men were lugging toward the field. "Get to your own post," Rufus Sorghum spat at him. Joe gave the grouchy roustabout a cheeky salute, then scampered off to where Millie was already sliding crates down a ramp. In the boxcar behind her, Catherine the Greater, the magician's assistant and wife, was carefully sorting more. There were a lot of boxes. The meadow might have been peaceful and empty now, but before nightfall, a border fence would encircle a village of tents, with the animal enclosures set up as far from the fence as possible. Medici didn't want Joplin's citizens dodging entrance fees to view the creatures. "Oh, good, you're here," Millie said. "Let's get these over." "Have you seen Barrymore?" a frantic voice called. "Oh, no," Millie said, exchanging an amused grimace with Joe as Catherine came to the doorway to see what the fuss was about. Puck, another one of the performers, sounded panicky. "He must have gotten loose again," Joe said. He sidled toward the next car. "You know, I can get under the cars and up on top. Look for him in all the tight spaces he loves." Millie sighed. "Fine, go find the monkey." Joe was off before she'd finished the sentence. "Just get back here as soon as you do," she called after her brother. Shaking her head, she continued stacking boxes of streamers and lights in a pile. "I'm not the fortune teller, but I predict he'll return precisely as the final box is unloaded," Catherine said, a smile playing on her lips. "Wouldn't have it any other way," Millie answered, with a grin of her own. The main tent always went up first, followed by the surrounding exhibitions. Last were the behind-the-scenes living areas. It was strange to be back on solid ground after a week on the rumbling train, but Millie was looking forward to some quiet time. It was 10 times easier to measure chemicals precisely when the floor wasn't shaking under her. "Thank you, Millie." Ivan the Wonderful, the magician, patted her head as he passed her to collect a box. By late afternoon, the camp was taking shape, and they'd started on the living quarters tucked at the back. Joe returned after a long hunt. Barrymore had hidden inside a feed bag, demolishing half the peanuts, and helped Millie spread out their tent. "Here, let me," Ivan said. He strode over and lifted one of the main poles easily, setting it into the small hole Joe had dug while Millie looped the fabric over the next pole. Once the first was secured in the ground, they lifted the second and third. Joe tacked the ends into the ground as Millie carted in their belongings from the boxcar. "You can always stay in our tent, you know," Catherine said, her hand resting on Millie's arm as they crossed paths by the train. "I know," Millie answered. Ivan and Catherine were incredibly kind and did everything they could for her and Joe. Every day they asked if the kids needed anything, such as help sewing extra cloth onto Millie's sleeves to make them longer. Sometimes they would bring little gifts, like a bag of cherries they'd bought at a train station along the way. And every night, they slept nearby. At the first stop after their mother died, Millie and Joe had squeezed into Ivan and Catherine's tent, but it was cramped and claustrophobic. Millie couldn't set up experiments without Ivan tripping over them, and Joe's early rising woke Catherine, who was a light sleeper. "We're okay," Millie said, And we know you're right next door if we need it.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?